Days passed after the confrontation, and the atmosphere in the neighborhood began to shift. Marcus continued his daily routines, checking the mail, taking rides around the block, and observing his surroundings. But now, Tom, Luke, and Henry behaved differently. Their previous boldness and teasing were gone, replaced by cautious respect. The boys were learning slowly but surely that Marcus was not someone to underestimate. They had realized, without being told, that strength came in many forms. His calm demeanor, quiet authority, and precise movements had taught them a lesson they could not ignore. One afternoon, Marcus wheeled himself to the park. The boys were there again, but this time they did not block his path or shout insults. Instead, they stood to the side, watching silently. Marcus noticed the change and felt a quiet satisfaction. He had not needed to raise his voice, shout, or forcefully demonstrate his abilities. Patience, observation, and calm action had done the work. As Marcus approached a small bench near the playground, a younger child tripped on a small rock. The boy looked frightened and started to cry. Instinctively, the older boy stepped forward to help. Tom carefully lifted the child's backpack, Luke steadied him, and Henry helped him stand up. Marcus watched them, a small smile on his face. They were beginning to understand the value of helping others instead of causing trouble. Later, as Marcus wheeled down the sidewalk, the boys approached him. "Marcus," Luke said hesitantly, We wanted to say sorry. We shouldn't have tried to bother you or block your path." Marcus stopped and looked at them calmly. "I accept your apology," he replied. "But remember, respect is not just about saying sorry. It is about your actions from now on. Treat others kindly, and you will gain respect naturally." Henry nodded. "We understand. We didn't realize how wrong we were." Marcus's calm and measured response left a lasting impression. The boys were not only apologizing but also reflecting on their past behavior. They had learned that it was not enough to be loud or intimidating. True respect required patience, understanding, and empathy. Over the next few weeks, the neighborhood began to notice the change. The boys who had once been a source of stress for Marcus were now participating in simple acts of kindness. They helped neighbors carry groceries, assisted younger children with their games, and even helped clean up the streets after small messes. Their confidence returned, but now it was paired with responsibility and consideration for others. Marcus continued to observe, silently encouraging their growth. He understood that change took time and that genuine respect could not be forced. By remaining calm, patient, and consistent, he had shown them the path without confrontation or harsh words. One evening, Marcus sat on his porch watching the sunset. Tom, Luke, and Henry were nearby, talking quietly as they helped Mrs. Allen with her garden. Marcus felt a quiet pride. He had not only protected himself but had also guided these boys toward better behavior. They were learning that courage, patience, and respect were far more valuable than teasing or intimidation. The neighborhood had begun to feel safer and more peaceful. Children who had been afraid of the bullies now played freely, and neighbors spoke with more warmth and friendliness. Marcus had quietly become a role model, not through force, but through wisdom, calmness, and action. As the evening sky turned golden, Marcus reflected on the events of the past weeks. The boys had been given a chance to learn, and they had taken it. Marcus knew that patience and understanding often achieved what anger and confrontation could not. Strength was not just in physical ability. It was in the ability to guide, teach, and influence others positively. Marcus wheeled inside his home that night with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The boys had learned their lesson, and the neighborhood had become a better place. He had shown them, without any harsh words or violence, the importance of respect, empathy, and patience. And in that moment, Marcus understood that the greatest victories were not always the ones that showed power or skill. Sometimes the greatest victories were the ones that inspired change, understanding, and kindness in others. It had been a few weeks since Marcus's calm confrontation with Tom, Luke, and Henry. The neighborhood had begun to change. Where there was once tension and teasing, there was now a sense of respect and cooperation. Children played freely, neighbors greeted one another warmly, and even the bullies themselves acted differently. Marcus wheeled himself down the street that morning, enjoying the fresh air and observing the surroundings. Across the way, Tom, Luke, and Henry were tidying up the yard of one of the neighbors. They worked together without complaint, laughing, quietly, and helping each other carry small tools and bags of soil. Marcus watched from a distance, a small smile forming on his face. The boys had learned to channel their energy into positive action, and the change was clear. As he approached the park, Marcus noticed a group of younger children struggling to fly a kite. The wind was gentle, but the kite kept tipping over. Instinctively, Marcus maneuvered closer. "Do you want some help?" he asked calmly. The children looked up, surprised but happy. "Yes, please," one of them said. Marcus helped adjust the string and showed them how to balance the kite properly. Soon it soared high into the sky. The children cheered and Marcus smiled quietly, pleased to see their joy. Meanwhile, the three boys approached him. "Marcus," Luke said a little nervously, "we wanted to thank you. You taught us something important. We didn't understand before, but now we see." Marcus wheeled closer, looking at each of them with calm eyes. "I am glad," he said. "What you have learned is not just about me. It is about life. Respect others, and you will earn respect. Strength is not only physical, it is patience, understanding, and doing what is right." Henry nodded slowly. "We get it now. We want to do better." Marcus smiled faintly. "Then act on it. Small actions every day make the biggest difference." Over the next few days, the neighborhood continued to improve. The boys helped neighbors with chores, greeted people politely, and even offered to assist in community events. They had become more thoughtful, more aware of the impact of their actions, and more respectful toward everyone around them. Marcus observed all of this quietly, knowing that real change took time, and he had given them the guidance without forcing it. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Marcus wheeled to his front porch and watched the street. The boys were playing, a friendly game of soccer with the younger children, laughing and cheering. The atmosphere was light, joyful, and completely different from just a few weeks ago. Marcus felt a deep sense of satisfaction. His quiet patience and calm guidance had brought about a meaningful change, not through punishment, but through example. Mrs. Allen, sitting on her porch nearby, looked at Marcus and smiled. "You have done more than protect yourself, Marcus. You've made this neighborhood better for everyone." Marcus nodded quietly. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in showing power, but in inspiring understanding. As evening turned to night, the boys said their goodbyes and headed home, waving politely at Marcus. For the first time, he saw genuine respect in their eyes. They no longer saw him as a target, but as someone they could learn from, someone whose quiet strength had made a lasting impact. Marcus wheeled inside his house and looked out the window one last time. The street was calm, peaceful, and safe. He reflected on the past weeks and the lessons shared. Respect, patience, understanding, and quiet confidence had transformed not only the boys but the entire neighborhood. He knew his life would continue to be full of challenges, especially with his federal work calling him to serve elsewhere. But he also knew that he had made a difference where he was. Small actions, calm decisions, and patience had the power to change lives, and he had seen it firsthand. As Marcus turned off the lights and prepared for the night, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The bullies had learned to respect others. The children felt safe. The neighborhood had become a better place. And Marcus, the black disabled veteran, in a wheelchair who had once been underestimated, had quietly shown that true strength is more than physical. It is courage, wisdom, and the ability to inspire change. The story of Marcus would not be forgotten in the neighborhood. He had left a mark, not through force but through understanding, patience, and quiet leadership. And that mark, Marcus knew, would last a lifetime. Marcus, a proud black veteran, walked down the quiet streets of his town. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. After a long day, he wanted nothing more than a warm meal and a moment of peace. He had served his country for many years and carried himself with a quiet dignity that came from experience and strength. As he approached a small, well-known restaurant on Main Street, Marcus noticed the soft glow of lights through the windows. He pushed the door open, expecting a friendly greeting. Instead, he was met with silence for a moment, and then the sharp eyes of Mr. Wilson, the restaurant's owner, fixed on him. Mr. Wilson was a man in his 50s with a proud posture and a sharp tongue. He had a reputation in town for being rude and unfair, especially to people who were different from him. Marcus walked slowly into the restaurant, scanning for a table. He smiled politely at a young server passing by. "Good evening. Could I have a table by the window, please?" he asked. His voice was calm and respectful, but Mr. Wilson's eyes narrowed as he overheard the request. "Sorry, we don't have tables for people like you here," Mr. Wilson said loudly. His words cut through the quiet hum of the restaurant, and a few customers glanced over in surprise. Marcus felt a small sting of anger, but he kept his expression calm. He had faced many challenges in life, and he knew that reacting with anger would only make the situation worse. Marcus straightened his back and replied, "I understand," in a soft, controlled voice. Then, without arguing, he turned and began to leave. Every step he took was steady and strong. He was a man who had faced danger on the battlefield, who had endured hardship, and who had learned that dignity often spoke louder than anger. A few patrons whispered to each other, unsure whether to intervene. One young man sitting near the counter felt a deep sense of injustice. He looked at Marcus with admiration for how calmly he handled the situation. Marcus, noticing the glances, gave a small nod of appreciation before stepping out into the cool evening air. Outside, the street was quiet. Marcus took a deep breath and felt the tension leave his shoulders. He thought about his family, about his son Liam, and about the life he had built despite the obstacles. Marcus believed in treating people with respect and hoped that someday others would learn to do the same. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, Mr. Wilson smirked to himself. He leaned against the counter and muttered, "I showed him who was in charge here." He felt a sense of satisfaction, unaware that his actions had left a mark far deeper than he imagined. He did not know that Marcus's son Liam was a remarkable young man, respected and admired by many, with the intelligence, strength, and courage to make a difference in the world. As the evening progressed, the restaurant filled with the quiet clatter of dishes and the low murmur of conversations. Mr. Wilson continued to serve customers with his usual pride, not realizing that his behavior had set the stage for an unexpected encounter that would change everything. Marcus walked home slowly, enjoying the peaceful night. The stars began to twinkle above, and a gentle breeze brushed his face. He knew that life often tested people in ways they did not expect. He had chosen dignity and patience tonight, and he felt proud of that choice. Little did Marcus know, the events of this evening were only the beginning. His son Liam would arrive at the same restaurant later, unaware of the confrontation that had just occurred. The night held secrets, surprises, and a lesson for Mr. Wilson that he would not soon forget. Marcus entered his home and felt a sense of calm. He sat down in his favorite chair, reflecting on the day. Even though the world could be unfair, he believed in doing the right thing. The story of this quiet evening was not over, and soon the lives of Marcus, Liam, and Mr. Wilson would intersect in ways none of them could predict. Liam, Marcus's son, was a young man known in the town for his intelligence and calm confidence. Unlike many, he never boasted about his achievements, but people admired him quietly for his wisdom, his kindness, and his courage. He had recently returned home after completing an important project in another city, and he decided to visit the small restaurant his father sometimes mentioned. The evening was calm, and the streets were painted with the soft glow of streetlights. Liam walked briskly, enjoying the cool breeze. He loved the quiet of the town at this hour, when most people had finished their work and the world felt peaceful. As he approached the restaurant, he noticed the soft yellow light spilling from the windows. He paused for a moment, remembering his father's stories about Mr. Wilson, the restaurant owner. Liam stepped inside and was immediately greeted by the familiar scent of food. The restaurant was modest but cozy, with a few tables neatly arranged and warm lights hanging from the ceiling. As he walked further in, he noticed Mr. Wilson behind the counter, serving customers with his usual pride. Liam's eyes scanned the room, and his sharp mind immediately sensed the subtle tension that had settled earlier. "Good evening," Liam said politely to the young server passing by. His voice was calm but carried a quiet authority. The server smiled and nodded, leading him toward an empty table near the window. Liam seated himself, ordered a simple meal, and glanced around. The atmosphere felt ordinary, yet he knew that the evening might take an unexpected turn. Mr. Wilson, noticing a young man sitting at the window, adjusted his posture and gave a brief, dismissive nod. He did not recognize Liam at first, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. Something about the young man seemed familiar, though he could not place it. Liam's presence had a quiet strength, the kind of presence that drew attention without demanding it. While waiting for his food, Liam's thoughts wandered to his father. Marcus had faced unfair treatment many times in life, but he had always responded with dignity. Liam admired his father deeply and had learned from him that strength was not only measured by physical courage, but also by moral character. The memory of his father's calm walk out of this very restaurant earlier that evening strengthened Liam's resolve. When Mr. Wilson brought Liam his meal, he spoke in his usual sharp tone. "Enjoy your dinner," he said, trying to maintain control of the situation. Liam looked up at him with a polite smile. There was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet confidence that unsettled Mr. Wilson more than any argument could. As Liam ate, he noticed the way Mr. Wilson kept glancing toward the door, as if expecting someone else. He realized that the man probably did not know who he was. Liam's mind worked quickly. He understood that his father's dignity had been tested, and now it was time to respond in a way that would make a lasting impression without causing conflict. A few minutes later, a couple of patrons entered and whispered among themselves. Liam overheard snippets of conversation about Marcus being humiliated earlier. His expression remained calm, but inside he felt a quiet determination. He would make sure that respect was earned and that the unfair treatment would not go unnoticed. Liam finished his meal and calmly stood up. He approached the counter where Mr. Wilson was wiping it down. The restaurant fell quiet for a moment, sensing that something important was about to happen. Liam's voice was steady and polite. "Good evening, Mr. Wilson. I believe my father visited your restaurant earlier tonight." Mr. Wilson froze for a moment, trying to hide his surprise. "Your father?" he stammered. I don't understand," Liam smiled gently. "Yes, Marcus, your behavior toward him was noticed. I hope you understand the importance of respect and kindness toward everyone, regardless of who they are." His words were calm but carried a weight that made Mr. Wilson step back mentally. For the first time that evening, Mr. Wilson felt a sense of unease. He realized that the young man standing before him was no ordinary visitor. There was a quiet authority in Liam's presence, one that made him understand that actions have consequences. The room remained calm, yet the energy had shifted. Patrons watched silently, sensing that a powerful moment of understanding was unfolding. Liam's arrival had changed the atmosphere entirely, and Mr. Wilson knew that he could not ignore it. That evening, Liam left the restaurant with his dignity intact, but he had made his point clear. He had shown that respect was not something to demand through fear, but something earned through actions. Mr. Wilson would remember this night for a long time, and it marked the beginning of a change he did not yet fully understand. After Liam left the restaurant, Mr. Wilson stood behind the counter, staring at the empty doorway. The evening air outside seemed calm, but inside he felt a strange heaviness. For the first time in many years, he realized that his words and actions had real consequences. The proud smirk that often appeared on his face was gone, replaced by a nervous frown. He thought back to the moment earlier, when Marcus had walked out calmly after being humiliated. The man had carried himself with dignity, without anger or complaint. Mr. Wilson had expected fear or submission, yet all he had seen was quiet strength. It made him uncomfortable, forcing him to confront feelings he had long ignored. "Why did I treat him like that?" Mr. Wilson muttered to himself. The words sounded strange even as he spoke them. He had never questioned his behavior before. For years he had acted with arrogance, believing that his wealth and position gave him the right to control others. But now something was changing. He could not stop thinking about Marcus and the way his son Liam had handled the situation. Later that evening, Mr. Wilson sat alone in his office behind the restaurant. The lights were dim, and the soft ticking of a clock filled the silence. He replayed the evening in his mind over and over. remembering every detail. Marcus's calm posture, the polite way he spoke, and the quiet power in Liam's words. Mr. Wilson could feel a deep sense of regret forming. For the first time, he understood that being respected was far more valuable than demanding it. Meanwhile, Marcus returned home. He did not speak much about the restaurant to his wife or son, but he felt proud of the way he had handled the situation. He believed that dignity and patience were powerful tools, and he had set an example for Liam without even realizing it. Marcus had always hoped that one day, people would treat others fairly, but he had also learned that patience was necessary when people failed to understand. Liam, on the other hand, could not stop thinking about the restaurant either. He felt proud of his father for remaining calm and strong, but he also understood the responsibility he carried. His quiet visit to the restaurant was more than just a meal. It was a lesson. Liam realized that actions could inspire change, and that even a small act of courage could leave a lasting impression on others. The next day, Mr. Wilson opened the restaurant as usual, but the mood inside was different. He greeted customers politely, carefully avoiding the arrogance that had defined him for so long. His employees noticed the change and were quietly surprised. The man who had once dismissed others with a wave of his hand now seemed hesitant, thoughtful, and aware of how his behavior affected everyone around him. Word spread quickly through the small town about the incident involving Marcus and his son. People whispered about the courage of the veteran and the wisdom of Liam. Many admired how they had handled the situation without anger or confrontation. Mr. Wilson overheard the stories and felt a mixture of embarrassment and respect. He realized that he had underestimated the strength of others and overestimated his own importance. By evening, Mr. Wilson made a decision. He wanted to apologize not just for the way he treated Marcus, but for the attitude he had carried for years. The pride that had blinded him was fading, replaced by a desire to make amends. He knew it would not be easy, but he understood that change often began with one honest step. Marcus and Liam, unaware of Mr. Wilson's decision, continued their evening quietly at home. Yet the events of the previous night had already planted a seed. The town, small as it was, had witnessed the power of respect, courage, and patience. Change was beginning to take root, not through anger or punishment, but through example. As night fell, Mr. Wilson sat in the quiet restaurant, thinking about what he had learned. He realized that life offered many lessons, often at unexpected times. Humbling experiences could be uncomfortable, but they could also inspire growth. He promised himself that he would not repeat the mistakes of the past and that he would do his best to treat everyone with fairness and respect. The weight of regret was heavy, but it carried a lesson. True strength is not shown through domination or humiliation, but through understanding, kindness, and humility. And for Mr. Wilson, this lesson had come just in time. The next morning, Mr. Wilson woke up early with a sense of purpose. The events of the previous evening had stayed with him all night, and he could not shake the feeling that he needed to make things right. He had spent years acting with arrogance, treating people without fairness, and he realized that respect was something to give, not demand. Today, he decided he would apologize to Marcus. He opened the restaurant early, even before the usual breakfast crowd arrived. The morning air was cool and fresh, and the first rays of sunlight shone through the windows, reflecting off the polished tables. Mr. Wilson cleaned the counter and straightened the chairs, but his mind was on one thing: the apology he needed to give. He wanted it to be sincere, without excuses and without expecting anything in return. Meanwhile, Marcus and Liam were preparing to leave the house for a short walk. Marcus had not mentioned the restaurant incident to Liam, but he could see that his son was thoughtful and observant. Liam too felt that there was more to be done. The night had shown him that respect and dignity mattered, and he trusted that his father's calm approach was a lesson for everyone, even for Mr. Wilson. As they approached the restaurant, they saw Mr. Wilson waiting near the door. His posture was different from usual, humble and careful. Marcus and Liam exchanged a quiet glance, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Good morning, Marcus," Mr. Wilson said, his voice calm but sincere. "I want to apologize for the way I treated you last night. It was wrong, and I have no excuse for my behavior." Marcus looked at him, surprised but composed. "Thank you for saying that," he replied. His voice carried the calmness of a man who had faced challenges and understood that people could change if given the chance. Liam stepped forward, a gentle smile on his face. "I appreciate your apology, Mr. Wilson. Respect is something we all need to practice. It is never too late to start." His words were calm, but they carried the quiet authority that had made Mr. Wilson uneasy the night before. Mr. Wilson nodded, feeling the weight of their words. He knew that he had a long way to go, but this was the first step. "I want to do better," he said. "I want my restaurant to be a place where everyone feels welcome and respected. I hope I can show you that I mean it." The three of them stood quietly for a moment, feeling the importance of this small yet powerful exchange. Other customers who had arrived for breakfast noticed the interaction and felt a sense of hope. It was rare to see pride humbled by sincerity, and the town would remember this moment for a long time. Marcus smiled softly. "Actions speak louder than words. I will watch and see how you follow through." He knew that forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about giving someone a chance to prove themselves. Liam nodded in agreement, silently supporting his father's words. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Wilson began to change the way he ran his restaurant. He greeted everyone with a genuine smile, listened carefully to his customers, and treated his employees with respect. Word spread quickly through the town, and people were surprised to see the transformation in a man who had once been so difficult. Marcus and Liam visited the restaurant occasionally, noticing the positive changes. Each visit felt warmer and more welcoming than the last. Patrons who had once hesitated to enter the restaurant now came freely, and the atmosphere was filled with kindness and friendliness. Through this experience, Mr. Wilson learned an important lesson. Humility and respect could build stronger connections than pride and arrogance ever could. He discovered that change was not easy, but it was possible when one took responsibility for their actions and genuinely wanted to do better. For Marcus and Liam, the experience was a reminder that dignity and patience were powerful tools. They had faced injustice without anger, and their calm strength had inspired change in someone else. The town had witnessed an important lesson, and the restaurant had become more than just a place to eat. It had become a place where respect and kindness were valued above all else. That morning marked a turning point for everyone involved. What had started as a moment of humiliation had become an opportunity for growth, learning, and understanding. And in the small town, the story of the veteran, his son, and the restaurant owner began to spread, inspiring others to act with courage, dignity, and respect in their own lives. Weeks turned into months, and the small town continued to feel the ripple effects of the events at Mr. Wilson's restaurant. What had begun as a moment of humiliation had grown into a lesson that touched every corner of the community. Marcus and Liam's calm courage, combined with Mr. Wilson's willingness to change, became a story people shared with pride. One sunny morning, the town organized a community gathering in the park. Families, friends, and neighbors came together to celebrate kindness, respect, and the small victories that made their town stronger. Marcus and Liam were invited to speak, and the crowd was eager to hear from the father and son who had inspired such a transformation. Marcus stepped forward first. His voice was steady, warm, and filled with quiet authority. "Life will test you in many ways. Sometimes people will act unfairly. You cannot control their actions, but you can control how you respond. Calmness, patience, and dignity can influence others far more than anger ever could." The crowd listened attentively. Parents nodded, children watched with wide eyes, and even Mr. Wilson, standing quietly to the side, felt a deep sense of pride and humility. Marcus continued, sharing how he had chosen to leave the restaurant without argument, demonstrating that strength often comes in silence and restraint. Then Liam spoke. "Respect is something we give freely," he said. "It is not something to demand or force. When we show understanding and kindness, it encourages others to do the same. Even one small act can inspire many people to think differently." His words carried the quiet confidence that had unsettled Mr. Wilson weeks ago. The crowd felt the wisdom in every sentence. After the speeches, Mr. Wilson stepped forward, his hands slightly trembling. "I want to thank Marcus and Liam publicly," he said. "I made a mistake. I treated someone unfairly, and I was proud of the wrong things for too long. Because of them, I have learned a lesson I will never forget. I want to be better, and I hope to show that change is always possible." The crowd erupted in applause, not just for Mr. Wilson's words, but for the courage it took to admit mistakes and make a real effort to improve. Children clapped with excitement, inspired by the adults demonstrating that growth was a lifelong journey. Parents felt hopeful that lessons of respect and dignity were being passed down naturally. Over the next few hours, families mingled, sharing stories and experiences. The park was filled with laughter, friendly conversation, and a sense of unity that had been missing before. People discussed how important it was to treat everyone fairly and to practice patience even in challenging situations. The story of Marcus, Liam, and Mr. Wilson had become a model for the town's values. That evening, Marcus and Liam walked home together. The air was cool and the sky glowed with the colors of the setting sun. "It feels good to see the town learning from what happened," Marcus said softly. Liam nodded. "Yes. What started with a small act of patience has grown into something much bigger. People are thinking differently, and that's a real change." Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Mr. Wilson reflected on how far he had come. He had transformed not only his business but also his own character. He greeted customers with genuine warmth, listened carefully, and treated everyone equally. He understood now that respect could never be bought or forced. It had to be shown in actions every day. The story of the veteran, his son, and the once proud restaurant owner became a symbol of hope in the town. It reminded everyone that mistakes could be corrected, that courage and patience could inspire change, and that even small acts of respect could transform a community. As the night fell, the lights in the restaurant glowed softly, and the town felt a sense of calm and harmony. Marcus and Liam knew that the lesson they had helped teach would continue to grow. People were starting to understand the value of dignity, kindness, and humility, and the story would be shared for years to come. In that small town, what had begun as a painful moment of unfairness had become a journey of growth, understanding, and hope, a powerful reminder that respect and patience could change hearts and communities forever. Months had passed since the incident at the restaurant, and the town had quietly transformed. The story of Marcus, his son Liam, and Mr. Wilson had become a source of inspiration. What began as a moment of unfairness had grown into a lesson about respect, patience, and courage that touched everyone's lives. One bright morning, Marcus and Liam decided to take a walk through the town square. Children played nearby, families chatted, and the market buzzed with activity. Everywhere they looked, they could see the small changes that had grown from the simple acts of dignity and understanding they had shown. People greeted one another with warmth, and the mood of the town felt lighter and more united. They passed by the restaurant, now more popular than ever. Mr. Wilson stood outside, greeting customers with a genuine smile. He waved to Marcus and Liam as they approached. "Good morning, both of you," he said. "I hope you will join me for breakfast today. It's on the house." Marcus smiled politely. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson, that is very kind of you." Liam nodded in agreement. It is always good to see progress and kindness in action. Inside the restaurant, the atmosphere was cheerful and welcoming. Customers chatted freely, children laughed, and the staff moved with confidence and happiness. It was clear that Mr. Wilson had not only changed himself, but also influenced everyone around him. His efforts to treat people with respect had created a positive environment that encouraged fairness and understanding. As they sat down, a young boy approached Marcus and Liam with shy curiosity. "Are you the veteran my mom told me about?" he asked. Marcus nodded with a gentle smile. "Yes, I am Marcus. And this is my son, Liam." The boy's eyes widened. "My mom said you taught people in our town a very important lesson." Marcus nodded again. Sometimes the hardest situations can teach the most valuable lessons. Patience, dignity, and kindness can inspire others more than anger or punishment. Liam added, "Even small actions matter. Every choice we make can influence others. Treating people fairly and with respect can change hearts, even when it seems impossible." The boy listened carefully, nodding. He ran back to join his friends, repeating the words he had heard. Marcus and Liam exchanged a quiet look, understanding that the lesson was spreading, reaching even the youngest members of the community. Mr. Wilson, serving breakfast nearby, overheard the conversation. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had made mistakes, but through learning from Marcus and Liam, he had grown into a better person. The restaurant was no longer just a business. It had become a symbol of respect, kindness, and the power of change. As the morning passed, more townspeople came in, sharing smiles and stories. Everyone seemed more connected, more thoughtful about how they treated one another. The town had become a place where people were learning and practicing respect daily, and the change was lasting. Later that afternoon, Marcus and Liam walked home together, reflecting on everything that had happened. "It is amazing to see how one event can grow into something so powerful," Marcus said softly. Liam nodded. "Yes, it shows that courage and patience can inspire not just one person, but an entire community." At home, they watched the sunset, feeling content. They knew that the lesson would continue to spread, carried by the actions of others who had witnessed it. The town had learned that respect, kindness, and understanding were not just words, but powerful tools that could transform lives. That evening, the lights in Mr. Wilson's restaurant shone brightly, welcoming everyone. What had once been a place of arrogance and unfairness had become a symbol of hope and positive change. The story of Marcus, Liam, and Mr. Wilson reminded everyone that even in difficult moments, choosing dignity and respect could leave a lasting impact. The town would remember this story for years to come. It became a lesson for children, adults, and visitors alike, that patience, courage, and kindness have the power to change hearts, mend relationships, and build stronger communities. And in that small town, a quiet evening that began with humiliation had blossomed into a legacy of respect, understanding, and hope for the future.